What's good, friends list? Episode 35 of the Gamecast coming at you. It's official. We now know what those juicy specs and features are for Microsoft's premier next-gen system, the Xbox Series X. This week, we dive into what those features and specs look like, from a massive amount of teraflops to a state-of-the-art custom SSD to what Microsoft is coining smart delivery for getting the best version of a game the first time you buy it. We leave no stone left unturned. Plus, after becoming the new home for popular streamers like Ninja and Shroud, is Mixer facing troubling times? Also, Phil Spencer is wanting to be more open with time commitment issues facing game development and crunch culture to help combat it. All of this and much more coming up on the newest episode of the Gamecast.
Now the fun begins. Punch it.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox and Xbox Game Pass, including news, rumors, and conversations around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get a podcast and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show and video games alike. Joining me today, my partner in crime, Mike P-Pack. Mike, what's good? What's going on? And as always, what the hell you been playing, man?
Not much is going on. Just living the dream. I've just been playing some NHL. A little bit less Smite, a little bit more Call of Duty Modern Warfare. It seems like since they've updated it, it's got a little bit more tolerable.
I was going to say bearable.
That's something that my group of friends plays, so that's why I've been playing that. Yeah. And lately, I've just been getting back into some Halo 3. People have been playing the Halo or the 2v2 playlist, so I'm just playing some Halo 3 again. Other than that, nothing crazy though.
Yeah. So what have the changes to Modern Warfare been? I mean, that's Call of Duty regularly is just a dark spot for me. Like I'll play every now and then. I'll pick one up on sale, but I never really go out and buy one. If I'm playing an FPS, it's usually, Overwatch, CSGO, something like that, and it's normally on PC, and anymore, even though it started on PC, I still never traditionally think of Call of Duty as a PC shooter anymore. It's just such at home on the console. So what were the changes that they've made over the past, handful of months since launch that at least now where you think it is something, it's like, okay, I may not love everything, but at least it's in a better position and worth me, I guess, playing it at this point?
I mean, the biggest thing is they just added classic maps that are a lot better than the maps that they developed. That was besides all the shotguns and other stupid things that you can do in the game that ruin it, the maps were just so bad that you couldn't get past it. But thankfully, they've finally put in some of the classic maps like Crash and Shipment and Vacant from Call of Duty 4. So they finally added some different maps that are actually playable. So that's been a big change. The new season, they put in some new guns that are decent with the new, Battle Pass season or whatever they call it. And,
kind of talk to me about that too. Just since it seems like every live service game for the most part is adapting some kind of Battle Pass to their game, to keep people coming back in, which is great, but how is, talk to me a little bit about that, how the Call of Duty model of this Battle Pass is alluring, I guess, comparative to a Fortnite or hell even, insert any live service game, Destiny or whatever.
I guess the biggest thing about it is they basically released 2 new guns that are really good. And if you buy the Battle Pass, you don't have to actually play to unlock them. You just unlock them instantly. So I guess for enthusiasts that really want all the newest guns or the best guns, they want to pay for the Battle Pass. But other than that, it's pretty much just unlockables, just like any other Battle Pass. Nothing special that makes it any better than another one. Just the unlockable guns that are unlocked instantly if you buy it.
Yeah. Well, at least that, I mean, I could see where that's a little, meh. I could see positives and negatives to that, but I think the positives weigh it much more out because you're eventually, it's not like it's not like, from what it sounds like, a Star Wars Battlefront 2 issue where literally to get heroes that you want, you have to play the game for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours to unlock something that's simple. At least with Call of Duty traditionally, and like I said, it's regularly been a blind spot for me. But anytime I remember actually devoting time to the multiplayer section of a Call of Duty game, the prestige system and the ability to unlock weapons was relatively easy. It wasn't overtly time consuming. Like, yeah, it rewards you for putting the time in, but it's not, you could play that and have a life as well.
Right.
So, yeah, I could see some negative to it, but at the same time, it's not completely gated off to anybody. But on my end, I've been kind of traveling a lot with work the past week, like just from different things going on with our events that we're running, and then plus two, like I said, I had to do some traveling the past day or so. So I haven't had a ton of time to actually sit down with anything concrete. But the one thing I have been doing is getting back into Overwatch, at least on the PC and Xbox side. I've been wanting to just some things that possibly with my job coming up that could actually lead to something with that. I've been, and I don't want to talk too much on it, but, it's made me want to get back in it. For Overwatch has always been the one kind of hero shooter and game that isn't a traditional FPS game, where it's, like I said, it's a hero shooter. It's based more on not tactical like CSGO, which I love, but it's kind of out there, and it's one of those things where I'm a support main. I usually main Ana, but I also play some off tank and things like that. But at the same time, it's good. It's a great game in the sense that it's fun to just jump in with everybody. Like, if we all play, like you, Adam, Kyle, and I, like, we can all jump in, and everyone has a role of some sort that they can fill, and it doesn't mean you have to go and carry DPS and get tons of frags. It could be, hey, you're focused on healing. Hey, if Kyle, you're playing tank, go in there with Roadhog and just fucking kind of just run tank a little bit. Literally just be Kyle and kind of not necessarily rush in all the time, but be the bullet sponge that we need you to be right now and kind of just cause chaos. Or with Orisa, just make sure you're putting shields down. Like, it's not overtly complicated. It can be if you want it to be, if you want to get into the minutia of the game. Like, yes, at a competitive level, it is insanely deep and there's so much depth to it, but at the same time, it's so easy to pick up and play and have people fill roles. So it's been great to kind of jump back into that and get to play that a little bit. But yeah, outside of that, I've been playing a few things on PS4 and my Switch as well, but I don't want to necessarily get into that too much, just being an Xbox show, as I always say. But yeah, Overwatch has kind of been my one that I've been circling back to. And just, I know I want to do, and at least we've been talking about it as well, doing one of traditional, I guess, for some of our OG fans out there, our traditional Game Pass, Gamecast, like, review episodes. We're talking about doing one for Doom coming up before Doom Eternal drops. So that'll probably end up being yet another playthrough I do of that. It's not an overtly long game, so definitely a weekend game. But that's one that I do want to play, and I know that's on the horizon. It's just finding the right time to play it so that I'm not, like, starved for when Doom Eternal, waiting for Doom Eternal to come out, but at the same time not being, like, doomed out, I guess. So, just how my fucking psychotic mind works whenever I'm trying to plan all this shit out instead of just sitting there and playing a video game. So, before we get into the news, a little bit of housekeeping. Speaking of Doom, we're talking about a Doom Eternal giveaway. I know you're hyped for Doom Eternal because all I ever do is talk about how hyped I am for Doom Eternal. Hype, just like the coronavirus, is, it spreads. And, we're probably all going to fucking die from the coronavirus. Just being honest, let's be honest. This is probably the Black Plague version 2.0. Who the hell knows? At least that's how CNN and a lot of those sites or news channels make it fucking sound. So we're probably all going to die. So I know you're hyped for Doom Eternal because it's probably one of the last things we're all going to do before the world dies. So, like I said, we are. So we want to make sure we get you a free copy before you kick the can. We're giving away one free copy of Doom Eternal for Xbox One or PC to one lucky listener. And all you have to do is enter, and it's very, very easy. Follow us over on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Retweet the pinned tweet that's on our profile about the contest, and boom, that's it. You're entered. But if you want to improve your odds of winning, you can get an extra entry by tagging a friend in the tweet about the contest. So then, at least if you're like me, like I always say, and unlucky and never fucking win anything, you hopefully have a buddy that wins, so then you can go and fucking mooch off them, be like a fucking leech and just, chill in their basement for a while, and when they're gone, go out and steal their nachos and, all kinds of other snacks, and just fucking sit there with your greasy Cheeto fingers and fucking play Doom Eternal.
And ruin their controller.
You'll be playing with the Ungi Muck controller. So, shout out to Adam, man. I'll also have a tweet in the description below, or a link to the tweet in the description below. Go down there, click on that. You literally have no fucking excuse then to enter. So make sure you get in there and enter for that. We're going to pull the winner on the March 13th episode of the show. So you have to enter by March 12th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern. So basically 9 o'clock Pacific time. Wherever else in the world you are, love you. Thank you so much for listening. Fucking figure it out. So head on over to @GPGC Podcast today and enter. I'm all full of piss and vinegar today, Mike. All full of it, man. I'm just wound up. I've been stuck on a plane the past couple of days. I've been running all around, games to do for work. Like it's been. I'm excited to sit here and talk about some video games. I'm hyped up,
Some Vidya games.
Vidya games with a J. You gotta throw it in there. VDJ. So, Mike, let's get into the news here. We got a report. Morale among Microsoft's Mixer team is at an all-time low. This comes by Asher Madan over at Windows Central. Reads, as always, too, link in the description. Go over there. Give Asher a click. That stuff means the world to some of those guys. So, today, a report from On MSFT, which I can assume is on Microsoft, said that employee morale at Microsoft's live streaming platform Mixer was at an all-time low. Employees are concerned about the future of the service, and there are layoffs taking place there. There's also a video that shows a newly appointed Mixer head, Silpa Yadala, making a rather harsh-sounding pitch to employees while discussing, quote, positivity in the workplace. The clip is truncated and may seem harsher when removed from the context of the full meaning, but it doesn't exactly paint Mixer's leadership in a sympathetic light. Quote, Mixer has had a rough few months that involved the original founders leaving the business alongside a general manager and corporate vice president. However, what hasn't been reported is that over the last 6 months, there have been 16 layoffs due to big budget cuts, which have shed roughly 25% of an already skeleton team and causing feature releases to slip schedule. That's according to a Mixer employee who reached out to us, concerned about the direction and fate of Mixer. During an internal Mixer town hall last week, executives spoke to its skeleton crew of employees to address the growing sense of frustration and low morale within the business. Unfortunately, their words were left a lot to be desired. Yadala had been meeting with employees one-on-one, presumably to assure fears and concerns, but on stage, her words may have had the adverse effect. So, we always talk about it. It sucks to hear about stuff like this, but while we've been hearing a lot of positive news around Mixer over the past year or so regarding, these big exclusivity deals that they've signed with high-profile streamers like Ninja, Shroud, King Goliath, you name it, and really the interactivity that's built into the platform for their audience, that chat has a much more interactive experience, and you've seen that in the way that Twitch has now added various user functionalities within there too, as a result of that. So you hear a lot of positive things about that. It's not completely shocking, though, to hear that they're struggling. With the deep pockets at Microsoft, they've been known to stick with their products, even if it means hemorrhaging some cash and trying to fix them long term. They don't tend to drop products such like Google does, with different things like various software that Google puts within their Google suite of options on Chrome. So if these reports are true, can the launch of next-gen systems really help Mixer get back on track with, titles like Halo Infinite and Hellblade 2 coming sooner than later? Or is really Twitch the real Goliath out there that David can't really beat this time around?
It's definitely tough. It feels like because they have so much money to throw at this, they think that they can tread water and try to keep it going while while they try to figure out what's next, or at least what might be the next big thing to make them grow. But I mean, I know streamers like Ninja and Shroud that made the switch over to Mixer. I know they got a lot of money up front to make the switch, so I don't think they really mind the fact that they might have lower viewers. And I know Ninja has kind of said, not really said straight up, like Twitch was basically telling me what to play and when, but it definitely seemed like he was leading towards like that's what was happening. Basically, he could only play certain things at certain times. So for those guys, I think it's definitely just like a net positive, regardless of if they have less viewers, because they got the money up front. They get to play what they want. It's just definitely weird. I think like Halo Infinite, Hellblade 2, those type of games might be able to help Mixer, but by and large, like most of the people that watch or stream Halo are still streaming on Twitch. Creatures or like humans are creatures of habit, and they don't like change. So I think the biggest problem is just like kind of uprooting your entire community from Twitch over to Mixer. Now, there's no doubt that there might be room for growth on Mixer as far as just like random people also, because there's maybe viewers on Mixer that haven't really found a home that they really like to enjoy yet, or there's less streamers on there. But by and large, it definitely feels like Mixer is on the back foot. I know, the money makes it seem like Microsoft might be able to make things work with Mixer. I don't think Halo Infinite or Hellblade 2 are going to be the games that put it over the edge, unless it's a situation where like you can only stream Halo Infinite on Mixer, which I don't think you could ever implement, and it would be suicide. But like, people are still just going to go to Twitch until Twitch does enough screwed up stuff to make people want to move. And Twitch has done some weird things in the past, but it hasn't made it to where there's a mass exodus of streamers to move. They see the big fish like Ninja and Shroud move like streaming platforms, and they think that there's a market there or an availability for them to be able to grow because those huge streamers have moved on. And basically what happened with both of those communities is they found other humongous streamers to support, and it didn't go to much like many of the small streamers. And there's like an insane stat that someone shared on Twitter that was like 95% of the Twitch community or the Twitch streamers stream to like 5 or less people. So it's still a very oversaturated market, and there's room to grow, and you can definitely grow, but streaming is definitely something that you should do out of the love. And making a switch to Mixer isn't going to necessarily grow your community right off the bat. You have to love what you do and put the effort out there. And I just don't think these games in general are going to bring Mixer, or at least catch it up to Twitch. I think they need to do some things kind of like the Twitch rivals that they had on Twitch, but Halo was in a point where they were wanting to grow the game in general, so they got some of the bigger streamers to play in the Twitch Rivals tournaments instead of having like a Mixer Rivals thing, and they let Ninja do one, but just didn't feel like it got the support that it needed. So I think esports wise, I think the home that rules is pretty much Twitch, and that's one of Microsoft's biggest focuses with Halo is trying to grow the esports scene, and I don't see it making a move from Twitch, so I don't think it'll help that much. But again, if the new Xbox Series X is easy, and with how beefy it's going to be, which we'll get into later on the show, if it's able to handle streaming directly to the internet better than the Xbox One was, where you might be able to just stream the game directly from the Xbox in pretty good quality, then maybe we'll see a growth. But other than that, I don't think. Like, maybe if it's like, if you stream directly to Mixer, you're going to have better performance than Twitch, like, which makes it sound weird. And I don't think Microsoft's that type of company to really tamper with things of that nature, because now you're getting into some weird territories.
Yeah.
But it's just, I just don't see a light at the end of the tunnel right now for Mixer unless they make a huge change.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be necessarily, at least right now, a happy ending with those two games specifically. And that's just because we really don't know what else is coming to the platform right now. Obviously, out of those two, Halo Infinite is the one that would, most games as a service are the ones who are going to catch on with a larger fan base. You look at Fortnite streamers, Rainbow Six Siege streamers, CSGO, you name it. All these live service games, there's so many large-scale streamers who play those regularly, and it's finding those games. And really, for something like that to happen, it would have to be two perfect storms aligning. It would have to be the Xbox Series X has to catch on. It has to come out to a really hot start right off the bat, good sales numbers right off the bang. On top of that, though, it may be able to do that, but Halo Infinite also has to catch on as a multiplayer game again. Halo has to be dominating, I guess dominating, but or at least be in top contention of being one of the most popular multiplayer games just period at that time in that zeitgeist, for really to get that kick over. And the big thing would be, though, is bringing those people to Mixer. Then you would have to think, they do a lot during their Inside Xbox streams that they'll do, and if you watch it on Mixer, you can get special items in game for a specific game. Like they always promote, hey, you can get these like obsidian skins in Rare's Sea of Thieves. So stuff like that, where if you're doing so much, if you're watching streams on Mixer while somebody's playing Halo Infinite, you're getting skins, you're getting some kind of in-game incentive for watching on Mixer. That has to be more than a draw, because, like you said, people can just automatically go to Twitch right now. Twitch is the big fish, and that's instantly just, game streaming Twitch. Like they're almost like the Kleenex tissue type situation, where game streaming and Twitch are almost like interchangeable at this point. Or at least when you think game streaming, you think Twitch, just like you think of Kleenex, you think of tissue, vice versa. So really, Halo's the one that is gotta be the one who comes out swinging. And it's just gotta click, and that's such a perfect storm alone. But it's gotta be a perfect storm twofold. Which as much as I would like to see that, I just don't think it's gonna happen. I think the race is gonna be a lot closer. While, like, between the two consoles, between, Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, I think it's going to be, they're both going in two different directions. Xbox is focused on being a platform more than a console, where PlayStation, at least right now, we don't know a lot of details there, seem to be, from what it sounds like, going the traditional, this is the next generation Sony platform, or Sony console. There's a hard difference between PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, where now Xbox is kind of taking the PC approach, and they're blurring that line a little bit, where they're just more focused on getting people in their ecosystem, not necessarily selling hardware, wherever you play their games, so just when you're playing their games. So it'll be really interesting, to say the least. So let's move into the last news story here. Phil Spencer says the video game industry should openly discuss problems like crunches and, quote, game loops that are exploitative. This comes by Abdullah Jawad via the Game Post. Like I said, as always, link in the description. Go over there and give Abdullah a click. So, yesterday, Xbox head Phil Spencer talked about the future of Xbox and Project xCloud with Insomniac Games CEO Ted Price. During the podcast, Phil Spencer described how the gaming industry and video game companies should be more public to discussing the crunch if a company is facing any. As we know, there are many companies that have been on this track. The most notable would be BioWare on the production of Anthem. Quote, now, it kind of feels like outside looking in is where a lot of the negative analysis comes from, and sometimes rightfully so. But I'd like us to be at the forefront of that as well. If we want to talk about crunch, if we want to talk about game loops that are exploitative, all these things, I'd much rather see us have an open conversation with one another, Phil says. So we've talked about crunch and shitty work environments before that are all found too commonly in today's gaming industry. So I don't necessarily want to stick on the topic for too long, because it's really an easy thing to explain, obviously, except if you're willing to work and do the overtime out of your own, want to do it in your own passion of just wanting to go, you're willingly wanting to go do that. But plain and simple, pay employees appropriately for their time, and don't build a fear culture of needing to work an asinine amount of overtime due to poor management oversight. It's just how it comes down to. So, do you think the inevitable change of crunch culture in gaming can come from open dialogue, Mike? Or will talking only move the bigger picture so far before it just stays in perpetual motion? You know, you could talk all you want, but where's the action at? Where's the actual change that's going to come? Or, you know, is really people just being, you know, more higher game dev execs and creative directors are open of just, you know, it sucks. We're busting our ass right now, and a lot of people are working a lot of overtime hours. They're missing their family, but it's because we have this passion for this game, and we want to do that, and we want to get there. What do you think?
I think as long as there's a deadline to meet, I think human beings are sometimes, you know, they kind of will put things off, or they'll say, you know, until that deadline's looming, I'm not going to really worry about it too much. I'm just going to carry it on at my own pace. And then as that deadline gets closer and closer, I think it's natural for every human to really start to panic. Maybe not even panic, but at least feel the pressure and, you know, really get down to the nitty gritty and crunch, if you will, you know, just get things done, basically. Like, I'm kind of a person like that, unfortunately. I'm like a get shit done kind of guy. Like, I'll kind of put it off. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, shit, I better
yeah, I used to be like
done.
that a lot. And then, like, slowly as I got later in, like, high school and college and shit like that, I still did it. Trust me. I still put shit off at times. But I tried to at least, like, I remember making that, like, I know people make those resolutions all the time where it's like, oh, I'm going to go to the fucking gym, or, oh, I'm going to do this, yada, yada. I remember one year just being like, I need to stop being the slapdick and, like, just fucking get ahead on stuff at least. Or, like, don't wait till the last fucking second to do shit. But then again, I also still do that sometimes, unfortunately, even in my job, where it's like, oh, yeah, you know, I'll find a worker or whatever the day before a game. Like, it happens. Like, that's just life, because guess what? There's shit that goes on at the same time outside of fucking work. So, but I'm with you. Like, it's like, I see there's a deadline, like, and I think just in nature, people are always going to be, like, procrastinate a little bit. But do you think just having this open dialogue, like the presentation end of, say, I'm, you know, for example, I'm Ted Price with Insomniac Games. They've worked on Xbox before. They're now a PlayStation studio, but for the sake of this article, let's go with Ted Price. Say Ted Price comes out and says, hey, say theoretically they're working on a Sunset Overdrive 2 for Xbox. They come out and he says, hey, you know what? Here's our deadline. We've delayed the game a few times now because of things going on, but we're really committed to hitting this final deadline. We don't want the game pushing past that anymore. We're all passionate about this, but we're working long hours. We're doing this. Yes, we are here late nights, and this last month we're really grinding out the end of here just to make sure the product is the best possible one for you, but it's because we're passionate about it. It's because we want to see this succeed. This isn't necessarily a job for many of us. You know, people aren't forced to stay here. If they have family commitments, by all means, go home, do whatever, that comes first. But if you want to be here and you are passionate about this, people are going out of their way to do it. Like, how would you take that, I guess, if you're a fan, or if you're just somebody who is commenting like we do on the games industry as a whole, outside looking in, I guess?
I don't. That one's definitely tough. My biggest thing with the whole crunch culture and issues that surround it are basically just stems from the fact that, like, I think as a human being, I think everybody can agree that it's just horrible to do to people. So I don't think you can really spin it in a positive light and say, you know, like, regardless of what the outcome is, we had to crunch, and it's because, you know, we have this desire to deliver a completed experience and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think that, like, any human beings are actually going to buy that, basically. Like, I think people have integrity, even, like, normal people and people that support, like, the crunch culture. There's not many ex-employees or current employees of the gaming industry that supports it, let alone, like, any outsiders that have any legitimacy to their opinion. So I think it's just truly a humanity thing where, by and large, most people are going to think it's wrong to treat people the way that they're treated during crunch. And even if it, you know, gives me a completed game experience, like, being under crunch it's not going to be like, it's not going to benefit very many people besides the developers, like, pockets, because the employees aren't going to be working that hard or well, because, you know, there's all those studies done where it shows people's usefulness threshold whenever they work.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many studies that have been done that show that working constantly for long periods of time just like lowers productivity.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there's any legitimate way that you can like spin it for a good PR look and people believe you. By and large, people are pretty much just going to be like, yeah, crunch is terrible. I don't really care what you have to say about it. I'm not going to change my mind.
No, totally agree. I agree. I think it starts the conversation at least and opens that door of, hey, okay, we understand that, but it's still wrong. How can we fix that? By also keeping that, hey, and I know developers, once a game ships, a lot of them fuck off for like a month or two, or, multiple weeks at least. And that's great and all, but from somebody who has worked long hours and consistently long hours for a majority of the year at times, like, yeah, we get a week off for Christmas, but sometimes it's like, we're still burnt out. Like, it's still like, oh, okay, like, I still haven't had a vacation. You know what I mean? Like, it's still from, obviously different careers, but it's still very much like, it doesn't necessarily change how that impacts you, your mental health, your ability, like you're saying, to get the job done, like, and actually give your best work possible whenever you're stressed to the fucking gills and you're just exhausted and physically and mentally burnt out and emotionally even at times. Like, it's just, it doesn't, I think it only goes so far until you actually say, okay, where's the union at? Where is it, the protection for these people at that time? I see both sides of the union argument, but at the same time, like, there needs to be something to, it shouldn't just be like, oh, just because you don't want to work 80 hours this week, you're fired. Like, well, no, that shouldn't be how it works. Like, let some dude go to his daughter's dance recital or something. You know what I mean? It's just,
right.
It's just, it's still a shitty excuse. Like, people just need to be smarter, and I think we need to, especially in this industry, it needs to be tackled differently on how jobs are approached. But anyways, Mike, I think it's time to head into our big topic. And guess what? It finally happened. Earlier this week, Microsoft finally unveiled the official specs and features for their upcoming premier next-gen console, the Xbox Series X. So, tons of rumors, as always, have been floating around regarding the system, which, like I said, it always is bound to happen in the lead-up to these next-gen launches, which really, especially, has been the case this time around, given how close both major hardware console manufacturers are keeping their cards pressed to their chest. They don't want anybody to see anything. There's rumors of Sony holding out to see how much Microsoft is going to be. There's rumors of Microsoft holding out to see how much Sony is going to be. It's just, who's waiting to blow their load first type of deal. So, off the cuff though, just kind of looking at these specs that are thrown out there, the Series X is boasting 12 teraflops, a custom RDNA 2 and Zen 2 processor from AMD, variable rate shading, hardware DirectX ray tracing, a custom built SSD, the ability to quick resume multiple games, dynamic latency input HDMI 2.1, an auto low latency mode, variable refresh rates, and up to 120 frames per second support, to name just a few. So there's, that's a lot to unpack. That's a lot to unpack, and a lot of the beefiness to dig into, and really a lot of beefiness to dig into. So this week, I want to dig deep on these specs, these features, and kind of narrow down what we can expect for at least the start of next gen for Xbox this fall. So, let's kick it off here. Let's start with the spec everyone likes to throw around, Mike. That's teraflops. So first off, if listener, if you aren't familiar with teraflops, don't worry. So do millions of other fucking gamers, yet it's shoved down everyone's throat. Like, we all just should know what a teraflop is. Like, oh yeah, you see this bad boy? 65 megaton unit mover. It's like, what? It's one thing if it's like, okay, yeah, it was one thing when we're going, okay, we're making that jump from, standard definition to high definition. It's a physical thing you could see. Even, is I'm going to kind of explain here, and I think Digital Trends explains it best. It's not like gigahertz, where at least with a processor, you could tell, you could see physical, speeds and things like that comparative to a teraflop, which is something that's just more or less been introduced, but it's now treated like the 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, 64-bit conversation of the retro gaming, of years past. So, and like I was about to say, I think Digital Trends really explains it best. Unlike gigahertz, which is measures a processor's clock speed, teraflop is a direct mathematical measurement of a computer's performance. So, more specifically, it refers to the capability of a processor to calculate 1 trillion floating point operations per second. So, for example, saying something has 6 T-flops means that the processor setup is capable of handling 6 trillion floating point calculations every second on average. Basically, how flexible the system is when it handles a multitude of objects on a screen at once from a power standpoint, and how it's able to handle all of that, how much it's able to output all of that. So, nerd shit, right? So, with double the punch packed in terms of teraflops from Xbox One X, which had 6, to the Series X, Mike, do you imagine seeing this being, really taken advantage of right from the get-go with titles like Infinite, with titles possibly like, Hellblade 2, or certain launch lineups that we don't know officially yet? Or will we see this be something that's more future-proofing down the line that will fully be realized, later in a few years, leading to, more empty experiences that we traditionally see at, with launch lineups, games that are a little more sparse, almost tech demos. Is that something we're going to see the fruits of the labor right away, or is it something that, almost like you look at Sony this year, seeing the Gods of War, or like a God of War and a Spider-Man and stuff, really taking advantage of that hardware, just later down the line, really when the first-party developers finally are able to utilize and have it down to a science of how to get the most out of that box.
Yeah, I definitely think I think it's definitely part future-proofing, part, it's going to make games run good right off the bat.
I agree.
I think we won't see like the top of the. I don't think we'll see it like pushed all the way to the max by these earlier games that come out here right off the rip.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it's going to make the games run a lot smoother. I think there's going to be a lot less screen lag issues, like FPS drops, like the Xbox One had, like the original Xbox One, not the One X. The One X had very good frame rate. It never really has that issue. But my old Xbox One that I have definitely has some FPS drops, things of that nature that you kind of like. It was to the point where I was like getting sick of it, and I was like, maybe I'll buy an Xbox One X. And then it's like, well, the new one's coming out in the fall, so I'll just suck it up and keep using this one until the new one comes out. That way I won't buy a One X and then buy a new one, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I definitely think that it's a case that we won't see it, pushed to the limit right off the bat. But I wouldn't say it's going to be too far in the near future either. It's going to take some type of open world game to really push the limits on what, or even a first-person shooter. It would just have to be very detailed. There would have to be an incredible amount of graphical detail that I think developers that are looking to develop games for both PC and Xbox will be wary of, because you don't want only the top, tier PCs to be able to run your game. But again, maybe you can make it to where your game runs on medium specs on, pretty solid computers, and then to run the extreme specs, you would need the top of the line, and the Xbox One Series X would run, high graphical setting, because it's probably never going to run the extreme, but it's just weird. I think they need to give users the option to turn graphics down also, because if I could change some of the graphical options in Call of Duty, it would run so much better for me on my Xbox, but I just simply don't have that capability. So I think, it's going to be tough for them to really hit the limit, but again, crazier things have happened. I just don't think it's going to be like right off the bat. I think you're looking at about 2 years until, people are saying, we're starting to hit this threshold where we can't really do much. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I definitely agree with you that I see it twofold. I could see part of me, though, at the same time, with how Microsoft is handling next gen, like I was saying earlier, it's more, they're taking a platform approach where very much so you still see, for the most part, you still see whenever you're having this cross-gen period when, like for example, last time around here, the Xbox 360 was still a viable option for people who wanted. They still produced it, they still made them because it sold gangbusters for how long, where it was still an option that people who weren't early adopters still got use out of it. They were still able to. It was a viable option to play video games at that time, but where it is now that those lines are blurred, where the Xbox Series X, while yes, it packs twice the power of the Xbox One X, or the Xbox, and even more than the Xbox Series X, or Series X, Jesus Christ, all these fucking Xbox One S.
There's a lot of X's.
Right, yeah, it's a lot of X's, a lot of S's, it's just a fucking lot of shit. So, but point being, it's a platform now. It's all kind of in one thing, where, yeah, there is a clear line of this will run better and much better on this hardware. This is the best way to play it, but you're still able to get in at the ground level if you have the old VCR Xbox One at launch like you do. So it's like it's a very PC approach that it's all scalable. And I hope that one, that's more friendly for developers, that they take advantage of that they can look at, okay, we don't necessarily, we may have these marketing deals in place, yada yada. Say somebody has the marketing rights to, let's say, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order 2 comes out, and Xbox once again has the marketing rights for that. Respawn can look at it and say, okay, they're really pushing us to have the best possible performance on the Xbox Series X, or Xbox One X, how they did before. Now with the Series X, it's like, well, at the same time, it's all on the same platform, at least right now. Hopefully they take the approach of, let's just model it after the PC build of this, where we started at this, we make sure it can run on the ground floor, and it can run semi-decently, that people are still able to play this at a certain point, like, from the minimum specs, it still runs, and it runs decently enough where we feel okay selling it at this price point. Let's do that, then let's just build up and make it as beefy as we can on the top part, with kind of what we're going to get into later down the road with how they're handling the upgrades with people who buy the game and want the Xbox Series X upgrade. It excites me because it is a PC approach, and PC gaming to me is, I'm not one of those PC master race. I'm much more inclined to buy something on PC now that I've been ingrained in that.
Right.
And with certain games, like now, 90% of the FPSs I play, unless it's, an immersive sim, like a BioShock or something of that nature, I'm playing on PC. But, it's still all my other games I like playing on console, and I want that scalable experience, like on PC. Like a lot of them, if you're playing Xbox, say you're playing The Witcher 3 on Xbox One X, there's an option for, do you favor resolution or do you favor performance? Yeah, well, I'll put it at 1080p, and you can get, maybe close to 60 frames per second by doing that, but we're not going to put, output it to 4K or whatever. But if you want the best textures and visuals possible on your 4K TV, put it at resolution. You're not going to get the frames, but, we'll see. I just want that on a PC level where, like you're saying, I can go into graphics and I could turn off shaders, I could turn off shadows if I want, I could do this, that, and 10 different things to customize my experience to get the most out of what I want to. Like, I think we're getting close to that. I hope that's what we get out of this, but who the fuck knows? It's going to be hard to tell. But I think Microsoft has the best chance of doing that, just with how closely ingrained the Xbox brand is to PC, and still to this day, and they keep getting closer to it. I just hope we get to that point where it's customizable because it's already so scalable. So, I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how they kind of handle that. So, let's kind of move into the next one here, Mike. Another thing I want to talk about, ray tracing. So, ray tracing has also kind of become one of those big... It's become one of the biggest graphical features to tout, in gaming right now, especially with the RTX line from NVIDIA. But it hasn't necessarily been like a common feature for many gamers. With this fall looking to be the new tipping point for that. Will ray tracing be revered by console gamers as highly as it is for PC, or as highly as it is for PC gamers who have the ability to do so right now? And will it become a standard feature that developers, naturally add to their games across the board? Or is this something that, we won't, like we kind of talked about before, it's something that we may not necessarily see for quite a while. To me, it seems like ray tracing is the next inevitable step in graphical fidelity. That and the, what is it that the photogenic textures that we see in like Kingdom Come Deliverance and things like that. What do you think? Do you think that's going to be, ray tracing is going to be that next just natural standard feature like a lot of people are expecting with crossplay and whatnot?
I definitely think, I don't know, ray tracing is a situation where if you are an enthusiast and it's something that you want to experience, you already have a PC and you're already experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I'm not saying that people who play on consoles can't be enthusiasts or they're not enthusiasts. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm just saying that if it's technology that you're after, I think that you would already have a computer that has the capability to run the ray tracing features, especially with NVIDIA. As far as making it cross-play across consoles to PC, I don't foresee consoles using ray tracing right away again. I think that's something that you'll see towards maybe the end of the life of this next console generation, just because I think that they realize, like, to keep the price points down and things of that nature is something that I don't know if they're going to be utilizing a ton of, even like game developers that are making games. I mean, you make it for PC, it has ray tracing. You make it for console, it doesn't have ray tracing. It's definitely that's a tough question. I would like to see it come to the console. I just don't think it's going to be right off the bat. It's going to be another one of those things where it's going to be like a year or two in, we'll see ray tracing across every single platform. But again, like I said, the biggest reason why I feel that way is if you want ray tracing already, most people have it or they're saving for it now. They're not waiting for Xbox One Series X to ray trace. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I could see it becoming a standard eventually, because at that point, technology would just be the technology needed for that to happen would be almost. It just would be almost standard at that point, where you can't go and buy, like, let's just think of it this way. For memory, now you can't buy anything lower than like 500 gigs on a flash drive or whatever. Like it's before you could, like, if you had a gig flash drive, you were like big dick swinging. So like it's just because at that point that technology just wasn't ready. Now it's going to be so common for that I would see it becoming just standard at that point, that devs are like, okay, we want this experience to be the best that we can, and what we vision in our heads, we're able to actually now put it there without cutting too many corners. So I could see it being that the technology will just naturally be, okay, cool. But I think at this point, like when we see the Xbox Series X launch later this year, and at launch, at least in the first year, I could see it more being, we're either going to have two things with a lot of the games that come out. We're going to have tech demos, like Arise, Son of Rome, which game wasn't horrible, but it was very much a tech demo. It was showing off what this system could do at that time period. I could see it being very much like that with ray tracing. You're going to get a smaller experience, but you're going to get at least the way that they're able to manipulate the hardware at that time to put it out of, okay, this is what you're going to get, but it's going to be a shorter experience. It's going to be more of a tech demo where, we may see a Halo Infinite come out, and 343 is saying, yeah, we can get some cutscenes and things like that to get that natural lighting, and that what true lighting would be in certain, encapsulated moments through the game. But overall gameplay is actually going to be, we want to be able to output 4K 60, so we're focused on doing this and this only to make sure you have the best polished gameplay experience, where there's a little more depth to it. It's going to be one of those, I think it's just going to be one or the other for at least a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a, cut and dry type experience where all games are going to be right there, and they're going to have it, and they're going to be good to go. Just because I don't think, even though Microsoft is touting some impressive fucking technology they're putting in this box, that I'm even thinking now it might be at $600, like, to get this box on day one. That it wouldn't shock me. That I just don't necessarily see it being the PC standard of, if you still want to do ray tracing, let's say for an example, and an RTX 280 Ti. Let's just see what a price is on one of those. I'll pull it up right now. You're looking at least $900. So, it's still one of those things that the graphics card alone that's going to be pumping out, the best graphical fidelity on PC alone is already, 100, we're looking at close to 150% of what your, a markup is on what Microsoft is potentially putting out. So it'll be interesting to see. I just don't think it'll be one of those things that until we get a couple years down the road, when people are able to manipulate the hardware enough to get it and get the most out of that box, that we're going to see it become a regular thing. I just think it's going to be one or the other type of thing. I don't think we're going to see a complete experience for quite a while that has ray tracing. So, moving on here, one thing I didn't really mention earlier that we kind of touched on, but I wanted to save it till now, obviously purposeful for this portion of the conversation, was the feature that Microsoft is coining as, quote, smart delivery, which allows players to buy a game once, whether you are playing it on Xbox One or Xbox Series X, and have access to the best possible version of that game across all Xbox platforms, Series X and the Xbox One family of consoles. You buy it once, you own it. It's very similar to, in a sense, the Play Anywhere model that Xbox had, where, hey, if you buy, the PC version of Gears 4, you're getting the Xbox version, or vice versa. You buy the Xbox version of Gears 4, you're getting the PC version. Similar to that in a style. And obviously, this is something you could tell the DNA is right there with it. So, while Microsoft is so far only making the commitment themselves to Xbox Game Studios mandatorily supporting this initiative, while leaving third-party devs to have the choice to, do so, one major third party is already joining that plan, and that's CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk 2077. They stated earlier this week, quote, "Gamers should never be forced to purchase the same game twice or pay for upgrades. Owners of Cyberpunk 2077 for Xbox One will receive the Xbox Series X upgrade for free when available." So, Mike, do you see this approach, which is, like we've kind of been talking about, very similar to PC gaming, becoming the norm across all console gaming platforms? Do you think Sony will have an answer to this with major first-party titles like The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima dropping this year on PS4, or will they try to double dip by offering, quote, remasters or, their own SKU PS5 boxed versions of those games for sale? What do you think?
I think Xbox is kind of setting a precedent in the console world that they kind of want a similar type of style of library, like Steam, basically, where you buy it once, it's in your Steam library, which is the same that it is now with Xbox One.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they're going to a new console and some people are going to be on Xbox One, and I'm going to have an Xbox One and an Xbox One Series X.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to play a game on each one, I'll be able to connect to it. I think that's going to become something that's a feature that I think PlayStation or Sony, whether they like it or not, is going to kind of have to basically answer, for lack of a better term. Like, they're basically going to have to come back and make it to where, like, this is kind of the norm on their system, because basically making people buy games twice is pretty crazy. If you buy it once, licensing is all a bit weird, and just like the belief of like owning a license and what you are right to do with owning a license. It's all a bit strange, just how people feel about it, anything of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like, once you buy a license once, it's yours. I don't think, like, let's say I buy a copy of GoldenEye for like a cartridge of GoldenEye. If I buy that cartridge, I should just be able, like, and I then, go ahead and use an emulator to play it, I shouldn't be frowned upon for using an emulator. I already bought the game.
Right.
Like it's my like game at that point in time. So I'm a huge fan of, Xbox going through or Microsoft going through this feature where, the smart delivery is going to allow you to play it on either console or, across, like, let's say I have an Xbox Series X at one house and then I have it at another house and I want to play it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be able to play it at either house, no problem. They kind of already had that with like the home Xbox thing that people were using at the beginning of the Xbox's One's life, where people were sharing games.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely something that I would see like Sony kind of has to go to bat and answer, because PlayStation or like Sony fans are going to be like, Xbox does this, Steam does this, you can do this on PC. Why can't we do it on why can't we do it on PlayStation? So I definitely think Sony's going to have to do something about it and try to come up with something that's like basically the exact same thing for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely has that feeling of, this was, to me at least, this is going to be the first stone that was thrown, the first shot that was shot. Like this was the first trigger pulled on. And I'm always one of those people, and I've said it countless times on the show. I think fucking console fanboys are stupid. Like whatever video games you like. If you like PlayStation, don't shit on Xbox just because it was your financial decision to go out there and buy a PlayStation instead of an Xbox because you wanted to get a PlayStation. Same with Xbox. Don't be a twat. If you bought an Xbox, great. Don't go shit on Sony because they have different games and somebody else was like, I want to get a PlayStation. Holy fucking nerd, you got a PlayStation. Like, that shit's dumb. I fucking hate it. I hate console wars. Just go and fucking play video games. Nintendo ain't throwing stones. They out there just putting out fucking banger after banger with Mario and Zelda and all that shit. And you don't hear them being like, well, Nintendo's the best place. They just want you to fucking come play their games. So, and Xbox is starting to do that shit. They're like, we don't fucking care. If you're playing our games, great, just come fucking play them. If you want to play PlayStation, great, go do that too. Like, who the fuck cares? So, just to preface it, you've heard how I feel about this. But in terms of this next big kind of showdown between these two, this is going to be, to me, this was the first shot fired. Where this is going to be, I think, a talking point moving forward of, we've seen Xbox's commitment to how first-party games are received. They're more worried about, we keep saying, getting people in their ecosystem. They're more worried about how many subscription numbers they have on Xbox Game Pass. It's not how many necessarily systems they've sold, how many of the games they've physically sold. They're more worried about, hey, these are how many people are playing on Xbox right now. That may be Xbox traditionally on their Xbox One X or soon their Xbox Series X. That may be them playing Xbox Game Pass on PC through the Xbox app. That may be them playing Xbox via Project X Cloud on their fucking phone. They're still in that ecosystem and they can still tout that number. And it's starting to become a number that can't be ignored. But they're doubling down on that too. They're doubling down on the, hey, we're doing gamer-friendly things like Sony was doing in 2013 to get trust back to their fan base and gamers in general. This is one of those things that, okay, now the pressure's on Sony. What's Sony going to do now? Are they going to say, whenever they finally reveal the PlayStation 5, are they going to say, oh yeah, here's all the launch lineup games, but don't worry, you're going to be able to play The Last of Us Part 2 again with the same disc you have now. It's still a game that supports Unreal, or it's still a console that's not built on, the fucking cell processor like the PlayStation 3 was, that you literally cannot like almost port anything over. You can't do backwards compatibility. You could just put in your PlayStation 4 Last of Us Part 2 disc and it works. Awesome. Or is it going to be, here's the PlayStation 5. Don't forget, though, here's all these cool games coming up, but don't forget, if you want to play the best possible version of The Last of Us Part 2, we got you covered with The Last of Us Part 2, 8K edition or whatever they fucking call it, like, remastered, if you want to even, I guess, I don't know how you can remaster a game that is that fidelity, like, that graphically beautiful at this point in time. Like, I could see when they did Last of Us Remastered from PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, because that was a pretty fucking big jump. But it just, to me, I feel like it's going to be one of those things that if they don't do it, soon enough, that feedback they're going to get is going to be, it's not going to be necessarily like, well, they did it for this reason, they did it for this. It's going to be like, it's going to be the crossplay, like, argument where, well, why wouldn't you do that? I'm buying this, right. I literally just bought The Last of Us Part 2 5 months ago, or whenever it comes out, 5-6 months ago. You're saying I have to go and fucking buy another one, or I have to pay $30 for an upgrade for it, like, to play it on here? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, I don't see them doing it. I think they're cognitively knowledgeable enough and aware that how much kickback they would get, because I still think that the Vietnam flashbacks of PTSD of when they revealed the PlayStation 3 and they flashed the $599.99 in 2006 didn't do them any favors and fucked them over for most of the generation, that console generation, that they don't want to relive that again. They got over 100 million PlayStation 4s in homes right now. They want to build on that success, and they know that they've seen how Microsoft dropped the ball after how much success they had with the 360 going into the Xbox One. They don't want to do that again. I think both companies, both hardware manufacturers, are smart enough to realize we need to make these boxes for gamers, and we need to do right by gamers, and that's where the money's going to come. If we do these small things that are right by them, that we could make a quick profit on, that isn't necessarily going to impact us long term, but just give us this quick return on investment type of thing, it's not smart. Let's do something more long term. Let's do something that we know is, if people are invested in this ecosystem, we're going to see long term results from that are going to be much more than just making a quick, at the end of the day, it's probably going to be $5 off after, everybody else who needs to get paid out from that $30 upgrade you got to buy or whatever. So I would doubt it. I think this is going to be the approach that is going to become the normal across all consoles. I cannot see, it may get to a point where it's almost like Nintendo with how they handled the 3DS and the new 3DS, where it doesn't, certain games just physically will not play on your old 3DS, and they may phase those out. But I think that's so far down the line that, I just would hope that they stay with the scalability that, eventually the Xbox One, yes, is just not going to be able to play certain games, but, I think people are more focused on gamer-friendly things, and that includes scalability with graphics and bringing people into ecosystems. I think that's just going to dominate the conversation. It's not necessarily, damn, look at how beautiful that is, because that's going to be there, and that's going to be there when 8K hits, and these consoles are already prepared for that, knock on wood, at least from what it sounds like, it can support up to 8K. When that's ready, yeah, they're going to be able to do all that, but people are more going to be focused on, okay, I'm just worried about playing the game first and foremost. If I can't fucking play the game, what the fuck am I going to do with 8K? You know what I mean? Like, right. It just seems weird. So I would imagine Sony's going to do the same thing, because I think, me personally, it's paramount that they do that. As somebody who's a fan of both sides, I play a fuck ton of PlayStation, I play a fuck ton of Xbox. I just want to see both of them succeed and both fan bases be happy, but that's never going to happen. So, Mike, let's move on to the next one here, since we're starting to run a little bit. Microsoft also confirmed, though, that they are still keeping with the day-and-date releases for all Xbox Game Studios releases on Xbox Game Pass. So, real quick, do you see that lasting all gen? If, say, Microsoft, like we were just kind of talking about, if Microsoft finds themselves back in the console race with Sony, where they're focused on, for some reason, hey, we got the numbers in on people, how many people are in the Xbox ecosystem, let's push consoles now. We want Xbox Series X's in homes. We already got 50 million out there. Fuck, let's try to push that. Let's double that by the end of this generation. Let's try to get them out there. do you think at that point, if Xbox is in, Microsoft is in a position where they're dominating the marketplace again, and at least the, zeitgeist, compared to kind of almost how Sony is now, do you see them peeling that back to try to make a profit then again of, hey, for some reason we can't do first-party studio games on Xbox Game Pass anymore. You have to physically go and buy them now. And eventually they'll get to Xbox Game Pass. But if you want to play them day and date, you got to go out and buy them. Do you see that kind of happening? And also, where do you think Game Pass goes as a whole? Do you see it officially becoming, you're buying, kind of like Game Pass Ultimate is now, where you get Live and Game Pass? Do you just see Game Pass completely taking over that, and just we get Xbox, whatever, insert marketing name for the service, where you just get everything involved with Xbox, kind of like PlayStation Plus? You can play online, you get free games, yada yada.
This one's definitely a tricky one. I mean, most of the questions really are, because it's kind of like splitting hairs on what do you think's going to happen.
Hey, that's a podcast, man. That's a podcast.
I think, personally, I believe that the Xbox Game Pass is a great service, and I think that there's a lot, by a lot, I mean literally a ton of Xbox users or Microsoft users that use this service, especially the people that want to play certain games on PC because they're playable on PC. I think I wouldn't think that they would go away from this Xbox Game Pass, and I think that we'll see certain studios might produce games on Game Pass as a way to keep people in. Mm-hmm. But if Xbox catches back up to Sony or even takes the lead, there's times where they might have a Xbox only game that you have to buy for the full $60 because they're looking for their big developers to get paid, basically. You know what I mean? There's smaller developers that are taking a chance, that are getting guaranteed money from Xbox to be an Xbox developer. They might throw their games on there. Like a game like Blair Witch comes to mind, where it's a great game, don't get me wrong, but it's not that deep to where
it is what
it's
it is.
A $60 game, right?
Yeah.
So I think that they will have games that are $60 games that deserve the money, that are not going to be on Game Pass only. But I think that you're going to see the smaller devs that they're kind of like almost like talent scouting, if you will. You'll see those smaller devs releasing smaller experiences on the Xbox Game Pass, which is still going to keep it as a great service. I think overall people are going to go away from paying yearly for their Xbox Live, and they're going to go to the monthly system that the Game Pass offers, like Game Pass Ultimate. I think that that's going to be a thing that continues, and I think more and more people are going to utilize that, especially if they're PC and Xbox gamers. And as games come out and they're more available on both platforms, I think that that's something that's going to grow more and more. And I think you'll see that become the norm, where people are just using that service more so than anything else.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. I think how you were saying earlier, where you're going to see Xbox kind of transition into almost this Steam, approach as well. I think that's what's so alluring about Xbox Game Pass, and what makes Xbox Game Pass work so well is its approach like Steam, where, granted, Steam has issues with discoverability on their storefront, where there's so many fucking games that go on there that they just get buried and buried and buried, and then you miss out on these excellent experiences that don't get the clicks that they deserve. But I think what works so well in that favor, though, with Xbox Game Pass is those experiences. One, the dev is, I'm sure, happy for a small game, say a game like, like Human Fall Flat, for example. It's a game that's known now and has been known before coming on Game Pass, but say that level of game comes on, they're getting ready to release it on PC or whatever, and Microsoft comes to them, or, we don't know exactly how that pitch works. Nobody has never really came out and said it on record of how that, is it Xbox approaching them, or is it developer going, or, publisher going to Xbox and saying, hey, we want to, we would be open to putting this game on Game Pass day and date, and just taking a payout from it, and that's where it provides stability for developers, in terms of they know they're getting X amount of money in for this game, bar none, no matter what, but also they're getting exposure too. And that's what I think Xbox Game Pass is always so alluring for games like Blair Witch, where, Bloober Team, like, they're a great studio. Layers of Fear has been received very well, and now doing something like this, Observer, I believe, was another one. It's titles like that people kind of hear, through the grapevine about, that now then become kind of cult hits on, streamers doing these horror-esque things that are so interactive from, multiple kind of areas in different, like communities and things like that. But I think we're going to see Game Pass kind of evolving into that. And I don't see them necessarily pulling off of that, because I think they're in too deep at this point to be like, once they start making money, oh no, fuck that, we're pulling out. We're not gonna. I think they're kind of two balls deep into that at this point to say, decommit to that, where if they get to a point, it's just going to be natural. But it's almost that Netflix approach too, of just, well, yeah, you have a Netflix subscription, they're making money hand over fist still on people who just have a subscription, that they're okay with putting out, A Marriage Story or whatever, these big Oscar-winning movies, or the Witcher series that, things like that. Or now, before Disney Plus came, the Avengers movies come on there, the Star Wars movies come on there, where people don't need to pay extra. They can just get it. They already have that subscription base that is hopefully enough to propel you to just go, they don't need to worry about extra sales. So it just keeps playing back into the platform approach. And I really think that, they're going to find success with it. I just feel that's just the way that it seems like the industry's moving, that I just can't not see it being successful. It just feels like people are people are ready for that. People are ready for that approach of accessibility for a multitude of games. At the same time, just kind of rounding out that point, I could see Microsoft rebranding itself to just, literally Xbox Live, and that includes Game Pass or whatever, some kind of brand name where it's one service, you get everything, or the, just some, whatever you want to call it. I could see them being like, hey, $15 a month or whatever you want to call it, $10 a month, you get access to everything involving Xbox and its ecosystem. So finally, kind of just to cap it off our conversation here, last one, Mike, that I had, overall, how often do you suspect that developers will commit to delivering games with that 120 FPS benchmark they have in mind? To me, 4K 60 keeps being touted as this standard moving forward, but for fuck's sake, we haven't hit 1080p 60 at times. It's still struggled consistently to commit on Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. Like, there's games that still struggle to hit that, non-4K benchmark with 60 frames per second on console. So do you see that just being one of those, that's a possibility that we're eventually going to get there, and we got to, developers are going to need to work with this tech for a while to be able to hit that and find the sweet spot to be able to balance those out? Or do you think, 4K 60 is going to come a lot faster than people think, and 120 frames isn't going to be as ridiculous as you think for 1080p at least?
I think it'll be something that we'll see in games at times, but the games aren't going to run at 120 all the time. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be something that we will see, like, it top end out at 120, but I think you'll see games more in the 90 and above 60 at all times. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, when you talk about 4K 60 FPS, how often is the game really going to run at a full 60 FPS?
Right.
If there's a ton of stuff going on the screen, you're going to see, numbers drop a little bit there. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just natural. That's what happens. I think that's going to be similar to the 120 FPS. I think that you're going to see games get to 120, but it's not going to stay there if there's a ton of stuff going on. However, I think it's something that you could think about talking about, where if you're going to be able to adjust the graphical settings or adjust things that might make the game run faster, you might be able to actually see a 120 frames consistently, and maybe drop no lower than 100. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
you're able to make changes to the graphical settings and things of that nature, that's something that might be normal. But again, we'll see. It's just speculation. But I have to think that, we're going to see a situation where we'll see 120 on single player experiences, as long as it's not a ton of stuff going on. But first person shooters, things of that nature, I don't think you're going to see 120 constantly. It'll definitely be below that.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it gets up to 120 constantly. I hope that you're able to play games like Overwatch or Rainbow Six Siege in 120 frames on your console. That'll be incredible. And it'll be a thing that, like, if you can plug in your mouse and keyboard to it, you almost have just as good of a computer as most people have. Like, you're in a good spot there. But we'll see what happens. I don't foresee it being the norm, or I don't see it running constantly at that much.
No, definitely not. I mean, it once again plays into that, there's so many PCs out there, gaming PCs, that are beefy as fuck, but don't at the same time have the capabilities of doing 1080p ultra settings at even 60 frames per second. And we're still talking about machines that are towards $1,000, so it just, depending on how they construct the system, potentially, maybe, eventually, we'll get to that point, but I still just don't, I don't see it. It 120 to me still seems like a pipe dream. Like, that just seems like one of those unachievable things. Who knows? If you ask me, I'm going to be ecstatic if we get a, bar none, like, the standard moving forward for games on our system is 1080p 60. Like, period. All games run at 1080p 60 on this console, no matter what. Like, that's, developers give the ability to, like, have the ability to implement, to put out their game in a stable condition that they feel comfortable having the game be, or putting the game out there and being able to feel comfortable that, hey, we have on settings that normally we only have access to, but they're scalable settings that you could go and put it on there, and you could have an uncapped frame rate and see what you can get on it, But I personally can't see, I just can't see 120. 120 still seems like a pipe dream. If they get to 4K 60 on games, like single player games like you're talking about, that'd be great, and I think that's achievable. But I would just be happy at 1080p 60 consistently locked, period, on this console, because 12 teraflops, there should be no fucking excuse to have 1080p 60. Personally, at least me, but I don't know. I'm not a game developer. Game development's hard. I'm not going to assume it isn't. So, they're out there doing the Lord's work, making us these sweet, nasty video games. So, I ain't going to judge them too much. So, Mike, I think that's going to be it. I think that's our show for this week. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you to talk about video games and all that nasty stuff, especially the Xbox Series X and what it's looking like for later this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Please find me on Twitter at TOYSXLDIER and on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier. Just hit me up there and let me know what you think of everything we talked about today.
Absolutely. And as always, I am your host, Travis White, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms, including Twitter at Traveless_, that's TRAVLESS_. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Traveless_, that's TRAVLESS, same as Twitter. And you can also play some video games over with me on Xbox Live at just regular Traveless, TRAVLESS. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox and Xbox Game Pass, including news, rumors, and conversation around them goddamn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show each and every Friday morning when they drop on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show and video games alike, along with our giveaways, like our Doom Eternal giveaway, which is going on right now, and the clock's a ticking. That game's fucking coming out soon, and you can get in the action. Just look down below in the description. There's a link right there. I made it idiot-proof because I'm an idiot. So if I could fucking do it, you could do it. So, Mike, that's going to be it for our show this week. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, sharing, and being a part of this growing community. Game on, and we will see you next week.